We have not really talked about COVID for a while because it's become kind of background noise to so many people. Whether that's right or wrong, I'm not saying, but it has become background noise to a large share of the United States. But we're currently in the middle of a wave so massive that the real number of infections might be 500,000 infections per day already now. And you might say, well, but hold on a second, David, those aren't the official numbers right now. And you would be absolutely correct, but I'll explain. If you look at the official case numbers, you'll see that we're back up to about 100,000 cases per day. In fact, if I look at the absolute newest numbers, we're at about 99,500 cases per day. So call it 100,000 cases per day. But we're now at a point where there's just a ton of sort of like who cares around the country. And the belief is that we're capturing maybe only 1 out of 5 actual infections that we have. Now, remember, a case is you've got a positive test. An infection is someone has the virus, whether it shows up as a positive test or not. And there's a few different reasons that we are not capturing nearly all of the infections. Number one, many people are just no longer getting tested when they have symptoms. Oh, I've got symptoms. Yeah, it's probably COVID or not. I don't know, but I'm just staying home. Or maybe I'm not even staying home if you're less responsible or unable to. But that's an infection and it's not showing up as a case. That's first and foremost. Number two, we have a ton of people getting home tests. And these home tests, there's nothing magical. There's no Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or RFID in your home test. If you test positive on a home test, and you don't report it anywhere, that also doesn't show up in the case numbers, even though it's an infection. And then thirdly, there's essentially no more testing of asymptomatic people going on. Very sparingly, there are places that are doing surveillance testing, meaning everybody gets tested on some period of time. Friends of mine and family who work in academic settings, some of them say, yeah, we get tested once a week or twice a week, just to keep the campus sort of in a regular testing mode, but that's basically gone away. And so asymptomatic people are essentially not showing up anywhere. And so to get the real number of infections, we have to multiply by roughly 5, says Dr. Eric Topol, who has a great Twitter on COVID stuff, and he's been a guest on this show, meaning that our 100,000 official cases per day probably means around 500,000 actual infections per day, which is just an incredible number. Now, the good news so far is that if we look at deaths continue to decline. And we typically believe there's about a 3 or 4 week delay from when cases increase before you see an increase in deaths. And it's been 2 months of increasing cases and deaths continue to decline, now down technically below the level of flu deaths in the United States, in the sense that if in the average, oh, I'm sorry, no, that's completely wrong, but I apologize. That's not true at all. We average about 1,000 flu deaths, 100 flu deaths a day in an average flu season. And we're at about 250 COVID deaths a day. So still 2.5 times as many COVID deaths as flu deaths. But hospitalizations are going up. So it is it's conceivable and plausible that soon we are going to see the death numbers go up as well. We're already seeing a 20% increase in hospitalizations. Now, in the meantime, we are learning many new things about COVID. One of those is not a good piece of news. It's that COVID is now evolving quickly enough with enough variants we've had variants forever, but now the variants actually seem to slightly more regularly outcompete each other, as Dr. Eric Topol has written about. And this means that more quickly we are getting variants that can break through boosters and can break through natural immunity as well to reinfect people potentially multiple times per year. That's very, very much not good. Now, there is one bit of good news if we want to look for one, which is that we're currently in what's being colloquially called wave 5, or also known as the BA4/BA5 wave. Remember, we had the original Omicron wave and then the secondary Omicron. Okay, so now we're on BA4 and BA5 variants. If you look at South Africa, you see that this wave 5 has already leveled off and started to decline. And so Oftentimes, what happens in South Africa happens in the United States somewhere around 6, 8, 10 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks later. And we hope that that's the case and that this is the peak. But these are incredible numbers, 500,000 infections believed per day. And one other element of this that's a bit concerning is we may already be kind of behind on vaccines. The Omicron tailored vaccine, which is going to be tailored to the first Omicron variant back from late November, early December 2021. That vaccine is going to be out in a couple of months. And by then, we're going to be like 5 variants away. So from that, so there's a real question as to whether we can even keep up or catch up when it comes to vaccination, because it takes a while to get the vaccines updated. So that's what's going on. I'd be curious to hear from you. Leave a comment, send an email, send a tweet. At this point, are you taking any COVID precautions at all? I know many people in the audience are taking full precautions, and many people in the audience are taking absolutely no precautions at this point in time, as of what I heard from you guys about a couple months ago. Let me know where you are right now. What if you could get through an entire nonfiction book in just 15 minutes? Blinkist takes top nonfiction books in every genre, boils them down into a text or audio explainer that you can consume in 15 minutes. Of course, Blinkist would never replace reading real books in their entirety, but Blinkist lets you absorb the most important insights from the nonfiction books you wouldn't otherwise have time for. I have a ton of different ways I consume information, and Blinkist is one of those, and it's super efficient. I just used Blinkist to listen to the book Toxic Positivity. Super interesting, just about this like happiness obsessed culture that now we live in. Got through it in 15 minutes with all of the key points. Blinkist also takes tons of popular podcasts and creates a 15-minute explainer for each episode. And Blinkist really just empowers you to grow by discovering new ideas, knowledge that will give you valuable new perspectives about the world. Go to Blinkist.com/Pacman to try Blinkist free for 7 days, and you'll get 25% off a premium subscription that's just $6.25 a month. The link is down below.